And we are all the way back. Back again. Back with a bang. Back with a. Just back. It's just a nice, beautiful summer day to talk about one of the best TV shows on. Guess what? TV. One of the best shows on TV. I can't believe I watched that up. But yeah, welcome back to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. My name is Jibs. I am joined with my good friend, Jerry. How's it going, Jerry?
Hey guys, I'm good, I think, again. Weird couple oh, this is not this is looking even more quiet. But anyway, weird couple of days, but I'm good. So nice to be back and talking about Barry again, and again and again. But here we are.
Yeah, as you kind of mentioned, we're going to be talking about HBO's Barry, one of the best shows on TV. I kind of haven't really clocked that it's nice 30-minute episodes, and you're able to just sort of get so much out of these 30 minutes, and there's just a lot that goes into the 30 minutes. But yeah, I mean, we'll get to all that. It's quite an interesting episode today because I mean, we spoke about how last episode was a non-Barry episode, and this episode is the complete opposite, isn't it?
You know what? I feel like I mean, Barry was a big part of it, yes, but like there was still I don't know, there's still a lot of non-Barry. Like there was a lot of Sally and everyone else, but like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That
well not
makes
everyone
sense.
else as in everyone else, but like everyone else in this particular episode gets
Hmm.
more screen time, I think, than Barry does. Or do they?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, but it sort of kind of stems from the point that it relates to sort of Barry and Sally running away ish. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, everything's obviously related to Barry, but I mean, running away or escaping. I mean, we'll get to that about how we actually end up here. But I
Yeah.
mean, before we actually speak about the episode, before we go too far, I just wanted to say, guys, please subscribe, please rate, review on all the platforms. We're out everywhere: Spotify, Apple Music, Stitcher, Deezer. I think. Obviously, we're on YouTube as well, where you can see our faces and our trims and our hats covering our trims as well, because some of us are desperate for one of those. And yeah, I mean, we have a lot of things coming up. We have obviously talking about Barry, we've got Succession, another HBO, we've got the Yellow Jackets. We have got Ted Lasso as well, which is, I mean, I've been hearing a lot of things about Ted Lasso this season. I'm sort of like,
Who
but I
said
mean, we still got
50
Ted Lasso.
minutes
We've
was a
still
good
got it covered.
idea?
We still got it covered. And obviously, we have this new movie podcast coming. I think we actually have like a Fast and Furious rankings coming soon. I'm not sure if I was supposed to say that. Bankly, please don't send the black cabs.
Wow.
Please don't say the black. Please don't send the black SUVs over.
Someone's
But
in trouble.
yeah, I think we'll have that coming. I'm not sure if I was supposed to disclose that, but I'm gonna tell you guys anyway because I look out for you guys, innit? But, but yeah, we have all you guys sorted. So obviously, don't forget to like rate, review, subscribe to all our platforms. Anyway, um get your sweet content. We're gonna keep this churning. We're gonna keep this rolling, and the party goes on. Like Jordan Belfort says, we're not fucking leaving. We're staying right here. So yeah, let's get into Barry.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, Barry season 4, episode 5, titled Tricky Legacies, obviously written by Bill Hader, directed by Bill Hader, and created by Alec Berg and Bill Hader. Sorry. Um, Interesting episode. Very interesting episode because the premise is this takes place 8 years after uh the last episode. That's kind of what we're led to believe. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we kind of didn't mention it in the last episode, um, but there were these scenes where Barry had his son with Sally, and they were living in looked like middle of nowhere, hick country Magaland basically, and
Why
we sort of didn't
Magaland?
we sort of didn't like really put much to it because we thought that it was more of like a flash forward or visions that he'd been seeing. But this episode kind of rejects uh, that notion that it was just a flash forward, and this looks like it's actually reality. That this, he actually has his son now with Sally, So, I mean, what do you think of this? Flash, this jump forward for this episode and like this entire format?
Honestly, a part of me is still hoping that it's not that it is still some sort of life he's imagined. Like, okay, Sarah's like Barry, let's go, and we're seeing this not necessarily a dream, but this thought of what could that life look like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mainly because obviously we're aware that like the first 7 episodes are available, but like we don't know what the finale is actually going to hold. But I remember that going into the season, one of the common things that people were saying were, "Oh wow, like there's a massive plot twist, and we didn't think the show would take this direction." So like in my
Mm-hmm.
head, I'm thinking, what is that plot twist? Because I already know that Barry's prison break isn't that like that's the spoiler that I mentioned, guy. If you've been listening for the whole season, that's the spoiler that I accidentally read, by the way. Barry's prison break, which kind of was obvious somewhat. But this time jump thing, yeah, we never once guessed that it was a time jump because it, like you said, in the earlier seasons, in the earlier episodes, Banky and I discussed them as like, are they dreams, hallucinations, are they
Mm-hmm.
thoughts? And a part of me still wants that to be like the case, in that he is, they are sort of like thinking of how their decision could sort of affect the lives of everyone around them, including
Yeah.
a child that they would have together. Um, so Banky made a point that in those scenes, maybe Barry is still deluded that Sally loves him, and maybe now he's coming to terms with the realization that that may not be the case,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
or this really is, an 8-year time jump. It really is real,
Mm-hmm.
and he, in a sense, is sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? He's just like we're just seeing what became of their lives 8 years later, and I don't know. There's just a part of me. It's a big jump that they'll have to take, but there's a part of me that's just not comfortable with that just yet. Um, I haven't watched episode 6, so I'm willing to see where they go and how they take it. But
Mm-hmm.
initially, I was just like, oh no, I can't believe. Like I want to see how they will do this, but I'm still waiting for like the other shoe to drop where we go back to the current timeline, and that just didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
I mean, do you have a problem with time jumps in TV series?
No, no, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like, yeah, I guess when like anything, I mean, when it's like anything, if done right, then who has a problem with it? I think, I mean,
Exactly.
Better Call Saul. Listen to episodes of Better Call Saul and Popcorn for Dinner podcast, by the way. Is they kind of went back and forth, didn't they? So you'd see. I mean, they sort of jumped all over the place. So you see the Saul timeline, then you see the Breaking Bad timeline, then you see the Gene timeline, which is sort of the events after Breaking Bad, and that was perfect because they all kind of all came together, and I mean the payoff was sort of worth it. So I'm guessing that's what Bill Hader is doing here. I mean, because one thing I like about just things in general, which is just some sort of movie film format, is how they show you the end. So rather than showing you, um, I mean, because they're a bit more focused on the how. So you're watching the how, but you're sort of trying to reason the why.
Mm.
And I think that's when done well, it's just an amazing. I mean, you could produce some amazing piece of art. I mean, that's kind of why I always like movies like Memento, where it's a bit, it's a bit weird with a kind of back and forth format. But I
I
mean, the
haven't
payoff is
actually. I
just,
still haven't seen that movie for some odd reason, and
oh, God.
I know everyone
I
tells
mean,
me to watch it, and they people that know me know that I would like it, but I don't think I'm in the. I don't
listen,
think
the
it's a good
popcorn for
idea
dinner.
right now.
Listen, if Christopher Nolan literally made 2 hour movie of him sitting down, staring into space. Best believe the Popcorn for Dinner podcast will be covering that, and I will be on that podcast,
Fairs,
probably hosting it anyway. So,
fairs. Now I get it.
so, so we're all stands of that. But I mean, just to sort of get into the episode, because we sort of episode 4 begins on a bang, ends on a bang. Sorry, because we see Sally get back home, and um, the ex or the sheriff guy, Mr. Morris, is waiting outside, and Barry's in the house as well. So I mean, this after watching this episode, um, Tricky Legacies, it just raises a whole lot of questions about what was the fate of Jim Moss, what was the fate of Noel Hank. Um, I mean, I guess we'll talk about the Gene Queen Kuzno scene later on, which is obviously 8 years later. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, just kind of coming back to Barry, I mean, we can see he's living this life in the middle of nowhere, and he's got a son with Sally, and he is, you know, an Abraham Lincoln fanatic, and he's like now religious now. And I was like, I mean, I guess the thing about episodes like this, it doesn't really, it will not insult our intelligence as viewers of the show. It's just telling you things and telling you to figure it out, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? And all right, you're trying to figure out, okay, this is going on there. And you've got the son, and you want, they're homeschooling the kid because they don't want anything to happen to the kid, but they're still obviously looking over their backs and everything. So, I mean, what do you make about the whole, I mean, just their lives at the moment?
I I can do this. I can do this. Anyway, um, I honestly don't know. It's honestly, this is why I said like I'm still struggling to accept a
Hmm.
I'm still kind of struggling to accept that there's a there's this time jump, and I don't know. Maybe if you ask me a different time, my answer might be slightly different. Um,
Hmm.
I think
So
it's maybe because of.
you think
Oh, sorry. Go on.
it's kind of like a vision, or
I don't know. I think this whatever we're seeing is possibly real, but like the main thing about it is that just me, I'm hoping that
hmm
episode 8 will be like the one where we now come back and see the present time. Whether that's because it's going to lead to this or it's like I don't well, it doesn't seem like that's what's gonna happen. It seems like they're gonna like this is the brave step they're taking, they're gonna see it through. Like in the real story, Barry actually just they actually just jumped 8 years and Barry and Sally just disappeared.
really?
I don't know. But let's just imagine
I
for a
mean,
second that Barry and Sally
okay,
disappeared for
okay.
8 years. Sally is living her worst best life where she's playing a character for 8 years, but she's frustrated.
Wearing a wig, yeah.
Yeah, and then Barry is sort of just like um struggling with that, and he's like using religion to sort of train his child to not make his mistakes or whatever, and almost
Hmm.
even sometimes to a certain extent being absent to the real struggles that Sally and his son are having because he's just like God will do it. But it's like, does Barry even believe that himself? Maybe he does. Uh, but the idea, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's because you remember when Barry first had that scene where he was on a desert and then he saw something and he saw like the people that he had killed before
Hmm.
Albert told him starting now. The idea that they've
Hmm. Hmm.
used things like that in a similar desert makes you think that maybe this again is another sort of like not really real thing that's happening to Barry.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's where I'm going with this. That I'm not sure if I'm ready to accept that it's a real time jump, but at the same time, we can still explore the story we have seen for an 8 year time jump where everyone just assumed Sally and Barry were gone. Everyone assumed that
Hmm.
Barry had killed Jean because Jean was also missing. And like you said, there are many questions. What became of Hank? That is true. What became of Jim? What that is true. What became of the rest of the? Well, we probably don't really care about what became of the rest of the police officers. But like,
Hmm.
what how did their careers go from essentially mishandling that case? Things like that.
Hmm.
Because with this, with the way it is, for instance, you remember the question we had on whether Leo died or not. It's
Hmm.
possible that Leo did die. Um, and that's
Possible, yeah.
probably why
Very
Jean went
possible.
away because Jean is like, oh my days, I just killed my son. Or
Hmm.
um, Jean is like, Oh, I have no idea. Or maybe Leo survived and Jean wanted nothing, and he wanted nothing to do with Jean. I have no idea. Jean's been isolated, and Jean just randomly shows
Yeah,
up. Or maybe because again, Jean hears that they're gonna make a movie about him. Jean being Jean is like, yeah, I'm gonna be involved.
he wants to control the narrative.
Exactly. So like, it could be. It could. This is a possible realistic ending to where the story has gone so far, but I just wish we would see it. And when he said like filmmaking style, it's reminding me of the problem I have with the marvelous Mrs. Maisel right now as well.
Hmm.
I am not happy with, you know how every episode, if you're watching the final season, every episode starts with the future. And even if you're seeing, without giving spoilers for that show, even if you're seeing something that could be seen as happy success, you're also seeing their their lives.
Hmm.
It's not so great.
Right. I don't know. Hmm. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. But we sort of learn about Kuzno. Kuzno. I always struggle
Yeah.
with that word. Gene Kuzno. There we go. Kuzno. We always say about when we saw Kuzno at the end. He did mention that he's been out of the country for 8 years. So I mean, there's just too many questions that come up, man. Because you're kind of like, why did he have to leave the country? Has he been hiding from Barry? Or did Barry tell him to leave the country? Did he have to leave the country for other reasons as
Mm,
well? Maybe because he shot his son and he doesn't want to go to jail, so he had to leave the
yeah.
country. And you're kind of like, okay, these are too many questions. But I mean, I understand like you're kind of you're finding it a bit harder to reconcile the fact that we've just jumped 8 years and we're not, as viewers, we're not kind of presented with the payoff of what exactly happened to, especially Noah Hank, and in a sense, Kuzna as well. But I think it's because we have about what 4 episodes to go, so I think, well, I'd hope that it'll be sort of like a back and forth kind of thing.
Isn't there
But I
just three
mean,
left?
at the end, or three left. Sorry, excuse
Yes.
me. But like, I mean, we're already introduced to this conflict at the end of this episode when Barry says he has to kill Kuzna, and that's an entirely interesting plot on
Is
its
it?
own. To kind of like, are they just going to give us 1 hour episodes now? And that just defeats the purpose of the 30-minute episodes that we
Oh,
were praising early on in this episode. So too many damn
I
questions.
hadn't even considered
Too
time
many damn questions.
increasing,
I
but
can't
like
wait.
the potential that Barry would have to kill Kuzuno is a question that he already had from, what's the word I'm looking for? He already had this question from speaking to speaking to Gene. Was it Gene he was speaking to? No, it
Hmm.
was Hank. Sorry. When
Hank,
he
Hank,
was like
Hank.
trying to put a hit on Gene, and obviously Gene probably doesn't even know about that, but Gene does know that Gene did believe that Barry would be trying to kill him. So, like you said, he could have been running from Barry this whole time because everyone in the world
Yeah.
expects that Barry would want to kill Kusino because Kusino was the one who
Hmm.
like essentially got Barry arrested, and even when
Hmm.
Kusino was missing, while Barry was missing, Gene, everyone probably also assumes that Barry killed Kusino or Kusinao,
Hmm.
and because of that, I mean, it's not necessarily a new concept that Barry would want to kill Jean. It's more maybe Barry had kind of like Fuchs in season three. He had found his slice of heaven, living away from everyone for a while,
Hmm.
but it wasn't really heaven. And then all of a sudden, it's threatened, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we have to go and do that story instead.
I hear you. I hear you. It's just interesting, man. Honestly, um, yeah. Which because I watched this episode like this is probably the episode I've watched the most, which is odd to say the least. But I was just very intrigued by each of these characters and what has led them to make decisions that they're making at the
Hmm.
moment. Because because they're miserable, man. Especially Sally, because she's started. I mean, tackling um her situation with alcohol. She's drinking a lot more, isn't she?
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm not sure it's. I'm not sure. 'Cause, I mean, you did mention that I think Barry might be oblivious to how she feels and how his son feels. He's literally isolating his son from everything, including like baseball. So the son wants to play baseball with his kid, then he's showing him, you know, literally the worst case scenario. So like the 0.0001% chance of things that could happen in a baseball game, and he's trying to discourage his son about playing baseball. Why do you think he's doing that?
Honestly, I don't like. So my obviously the first thing you go to is like, oh, he wants to avoid a life of violence, and then you start thinking of parents who kind of in trying to yeah
Helicopter
in trying to
parents.
protect their kids from the trauma they endured, they kind of inflict a new kind of trauma, like going too far the opposite direction. Um,
Hmm.
that's what it felt like. I'm watching Barry interact with John. It's just like the boy just wants to play baseball, and next thing he's showing him like terror, like horrific clips of people not just getting injured but actually dying from simple injuries playing baseball. It's like, of course that kid is going to be scared of life. Like, what is going on here?
Discourage
He can't
anybody
play
from
Call
playing
of
the bloody
Duty
sports.
because he might grow up to be a hitman just like Barry. Like, there's so many things, like you're going too far in the wrong direction. You can chill, you know.
Yeah, I feel like that's not really going to end well, the path that it's going. I mean, of all the sports in America, I think baseball is probably either. I mean, he's probably not going to be tall, is he? It's got to be baseball then, because that's the one you can probably make the
I mean, the
most.
kid is definitely
Can
less
probably
than
make
eight
the
years
most
old,
money.
so we don't actually know. Or,
Don't know.
uh, well, we don't know.
He did have a. He was catching the ball
Yeah,
well. He make good right fielder. Who
yeah, he
knows?
might
We'll have a
still.
swing on
He
him.
maybe hasn't hit puberty, so like he still has a growth spurt to come. But like, yeah, like who knows? Who knows? And although
Who
that
knows?
scene where he was catching and then he was throwing the ball and they're like nice throw, I was kind of picking up on that as like this kid being so removed from anything remotely violent doesn't know his own strength. So like we could
Hmm.
see a scene where because of Barry's isolation, he reacts in anger at some point and does something so drastic.
Ooh,
Um,
that is
I don't know
interesting.
if they will go that far in this story or if this story even has anything to do with that or deal with that. But yeah, it's
Um, because he's been homeschooled as well, isn't
yeah, I
he?
think so.
So it's because I mean there was that phone call with Sally and Barry that they had, and I was like, "What did you teach him today?" It's like, "Oh, I taught him about Abe Lincoln and some other
Hmm,
historical
hmm.
stuff." And I think the next day we're going to move on to something more interesting. So it's quite interesting why, or it's quite fascinating why they're trying to just choke the kid out of interacting with other people and interacting with like normal things kids should be like. Who the hell wants to be an 8-year-old kid listening to Abe Lincoln? It was very funny how like he was talking about all these people who we perceive as good people or historically good people. So he spoke about Abe Lincoln, spoke about Gandhi, and was saying how like actually I think Abe Lincoln wanted to send all the black people back to Africa, and Gandhi was actually, denied his his partner medicine because it was against their beliefs. But when it's time for him to take medicine, he took it gladly. And you're like, oh, okay, this is some dark humor, and I can definitely appreciate. Let's let's talk about. Actually, before we move to Sally, there was that part um in the episode where his photo is kind of right bang in the middle of the desert, and it's like, oh, son, or the son recognizes that, oh, who's this, and sees like a frame photo of Barry in the Marines. Do you know how that got there?
No, no. Um,
So are we supposed to deduce that someone put it there, or Did that kind of
In the
slip
moment
through?
I saw it, because Barry did say, looks like there's something else there, right? It was Barry who called his attention to it. So I kind of, in the moment, I viewed it as Barry kind of sharing a side of himself that he had never shared with his kid before,
Right.
and just
Hmm,
opening up
hmm.
in that way.
Yeah. And speaks about it because, like, in the next scene, someone knocks on their
Mm.
door and runs away before Barry gets to the door. And Barry literally waits outside of the house the entire night, doesn't he? Well, Sally and the kid is slept in the bathroom, and you're kind of like, okay, this is like another subplot that there's there's something definitely to look out for here because I mean, kind of mentioned early on about there's still so much to get through, or so much to resolve in the next couple of episodes. So you're kind of wondering, or I'm kind of wondering, how are they going to fit all these in one episode, or in a couple of 3 episodes? I think we've got left. 3 episodes. So you're sort of wondering, um, are they going to, how are they able to cram all these things together? But I do trust Bill Hader, though. I do trust his writing because I mean, this show has delivered ever since. So I mean, watch out for that. Let's talk about Sally. She is not having fun, is she?
No.
Properly losing it at the moment. I mean, drinking a bit more. She's not. She's quite miserable. I mean, even in the flash in the jump forward, we see that the protege that she took under her
Mm.
wing is like a star now for a
Yeah.
franchise, and we saw her agent on TV like chatting crazy as well.
Oh.
So yeah, she's definitely not in a good place right now. And I mean, she has that episode with, or that encounter with her um, colleague where he asked for. I mean, they talk about one of his like previous past robberies, and she asked him, "Are you a bad boy god and stuff?" And it's like, bad boy god. I mean, anything I could, anything else, bad boy god. I mean, do what you want to do, but still. Then he asked, I think they like, I think, yeah, after that, massages her foot, then they go
Mm.
into the bathroom and you go, okay, what's going on here? Is Sally about to properly have an affair? Then, as you think they're getting it on, next thing she starts choking the guy, and you're like,
Mm.
okay. And that's the thing about the show is like, things just happen. Like, it doesn't really build up to, like, it's quite subversive, where it's things happen, then something that you're not expecting just happens. And kind of like, oh, okay, where the hell did this come from? Like, there's no build up to that event, or it's building up to another event, and that event just happens. Like, for example, um, when Barry was about to um, escape from prison, like that, the way that entire scene just folded, it was kind of just like, oh, okay, there was just a shootout, and it's just like bang, 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 it just happened, just like that. And it was the same for this in this situation where she just starts, choking the guy out, and it's like, what was the build up to this? You think they're actually having a moment? I mean, she probably finds the guy quite repulsive, but maybe she might be attracted to him. You never know. You don't want to question people's types and tastes. Everyone is attracted to what they like. So, what do you think of that scene in general?
Um. Again. Wait. This is difficult. But anyway, yeah. Like at first, I thought they were going with the typical story, like Barry. How do I put this? Barry is. What am I even saying? Sorry. I thought we were going to typical story, like okay, this has not happened. We're seeing everyone's lives kind of going in a certain direction. including
Hmm.
Sally, she's now like visibly frustrated with Barry. So now she's just doing something for some sort of fun or excitement with this guy. I don't even understand what was going on with what they reported him for. This is why I needed a rewatch because I wasn't really paying full attention in that scene. And I haven't done that yet. But when they were in the
Hmm.
bathroom, I'm like, okay, I don't think I want to see Sally actually cheat. But then when she started choking him, I'm like, okay, so she's like we're seeing her take out all that pent up frustration, and we've seen that sort of play a role. We've seen that kind of play out in different shows where a person's anger isn't really expressed, and then it's just suddenly like taken out on
Hmm.
a random stranger, whether or not they deserve it or not. It's just like they're just there and they just collect the whatever, like in this case Sally was choking him, and I was like, she's not actually going to like randomly kill him and then spoil her current like paradise, or well, not paradise but her current like escape situation. She's not going to kill him, right? Like that's not what's happening here.
Hmm.
um but they didn't go there, and yeah, that's all I can think of right now at this moment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you did good, do a good job of sort of mentioning maybe he's just trying to take out her frustrations on him, but he's seen. I mean, he pulled the wig off,
Yeah.
Didn't he? So you're sort of okay. Well, he
And he goes
knows
quickly, I won't tell anyone.
that she's definitely not whoever she thinks she is, or
Mm.
she's telling him to be. So I mean, there's that. Then after, I mean, scene after, I think he or she reports him for stealing from the till. So he's she's gotten him fired and
Mm.
trying to get rid of him. So I mean, there's that. I mean, that was a lot, wasn't it? Because I mean, you sort of wonder this if there'd be any repercussions for him finding out that she's basically a phony.
Yeah, maybe. Which is probably why she got him fired. Wait, does he work there? Yeah, that was what
Yeah, he works there,
I
but
wasn't sure if I picked up on correctly because that's why I needed a second watch. And she got him fired, right?
yeah, I mean, the way we know, the way, yeah, because the way we know he works there is, I think one of the other colleagues, the lady that she was smoking with and drinking with, was like, "Oh, this guy
Mm.
jerks off to you." Told me he jerked off to you, and I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, sure, sure." I mean, why do you even tell her that? It's like,
And then
what's the
it does bring in
point?
that dynamic of like, was she sort of always planning to sort of punish him for jerking off, or was that like she was turned on by that, and then in the moment something changed or something snapped, and then obviously the fear of her exposure, she's like, okay, I need to get this guy out, and blah 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 blah. Um,
Yeah, I mean, maybe she's just looking for something
mm,
like a thrill because her life is
mm.
just so fucking boring right now. So it's like I'll take anything
And then
I
all of a
can get.
sudden, news article drops.
Yeah, that was bombshell, wasn't it? At the end of the episode, and yeah, I mean, we did speak about it earlier about how like it just raises a lot of questions going forward, and if they'd even be able to resolve all these subplots and little storylines that we've encountered throughout the
I think
season
they will.
in the next three episodes. I think they do. I do trust that they will. I would guess that one of these episodes would be a bit longer. Maybe not an hour, maybe like
Yeah,
40 minutes,
maybe.
45 or something, maybe the finale. But because we're sort of saddling between two timelines, then aren't we? Because we still need to sort of figure out what happened to Hank. Or do we really need
I
to know what
think
happened to Hank though?
yes, but we will see that soon. I think we'll probably see if
Yeah.
this 8 year time jump continues in episode 6 and 7, we'll probably see more of the other characters outside of Barry's slice of the world.
Hmm.
The question as well is where exactly are Barry and Sally? Like, where actually are they living right now? Because this is a place where you have neighbors, but they don't really feel like neighbors. They're basically
No,
living in the middle of, you know how
and
like
I mean they're
Courage the
trying as much as
Cowardly
possible
Dog,
to
like he
just
lived in the middle of nowhere. Like that's how it feels.
exactly, yeah, yeah, that's what it looks like. And it's like they're as much as possible to sort of isolate themselves from everybody else, and it's like this is not very healthy, is it? It's kind and it's not very sustainable at the same time. Someone is obviously going to find out, and their
Mm,
pictures are going to come up somewhere, and it's like, yeah, I mean the same thing as Better Call Saul, where I mean to be fair, Saul was a bit more, you know, he was less reliable in sort of keeping low. He always wanted to look for attention compared to Barry. But Barry as a kid, so it's like, who knows who knows, who knows. But I guess we'll see. That's kind of
yeah.
why we watch the episodes, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. So I guess that is everything for now. Um, have you got any more thoughts on Barry?
I
No.
do. I am excited to see where the rest of the season will go. Um, I found it funny that Gene would have to prove his identity um, after, like, yeah, just I wonder what the interaction with Gene there was. I'm wondering who the president that of was it Warner Company that they spoke about? Yeah, I wonder who the president
Wanna,
that
yeah,
Gene is going to speak to, because when he said I would like to speak to the president, and they didn't just say the
true,
name, and then they kind of just alluded on who that is. I want to know who I don't know if
yeah.
we're supposed to even take guesses on who the person might be, and if it's a character we've already met, and when we see it, it will just like burst out laughing,
Hmm.
or if it's something that would be like, damn, like you moved up in the world kind of thing. And
That's a good
yeah,
point,
it's things
actually.
like
That's a fair shout.
that. Because most of this episode happens in that space where you're not really sure what Barry is doing, but
Hmm.
then we start to now see like the rest of the world, which is why you then start to accept like there was an 8 year time jump, and at the very least, this is something that exists. At least in terms of the story that's going to play out for the next couple of episodes, we're going to see what that is. Whether it turns out in the end that it's just a consideration that they have in their heads and then decide to do things
Hmm.
differently, or it turns out that everything is they really had an 8 year time jump. Um, we'll see. But I mean, all signs point to a time jump. It's just like coming to terms with that. It's just
Hmm. It's like hard. Yeah, I hear. Anyways, yeah, guys, that was Barry season 4, episode 5, Tricky Legacies. Really great episode, really different episode. I mean, we've spoken about the time jump at length, and yeah, guys, let us know what you think about the episode. Obviously, we'd be covering Barry until its season finale all through, the rest of the weeks. We still have, um, Yellow Jackets, still have Ted Lasso. We still have Succession, all the TV shows coming up. And yeah, obviously keep on the lookout for our movie podcast as well. I think we'll be covering Fast and Furious. I think there's a Barbie
mm-hmm.
movie. There's Barbie coming out as well. There'd be Dune Part 2. Just too much content for you guys. And yeah, obviously don't forget to like subscribe. Don't forget to rate, review us on all the platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because who doesn't want to see our faces as we're giving these amazing takes. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next week when we're joined by who are we joined by? Jessica Chastain. I'll phone her up and see if she's free. See if she can join us to talk about Barry.
Thanks,
But anyway,
guys.
cheers, guys. Thanks.